Backstage.
Okay, now the bullet hits.
The bullet hits.
Okay. This is a bullet hit.
Now, if there's any actors out there, I'm sure you have experience with this.
If you
there we go. Look at that
for a minute. Let me see if I can find.
I'll take some
plate.
I'll take some pictures. I'll take some pictures of these, and I'll show them on screen right now.
Of course. Why is it Murphy's Law says it's going to be in the last box?
Of course, you should have went to the last one first.
I know I should have, but then it wouldn't have been the last one, would it? No, I put it in a different box. Okay.
Did you?
I put it in something different. Okay. We might have to cut at some point while I go because I might have left that on in the car.
Okay.
But basically, this is a little explosive device. You notice it's very flat because this is the type that's designed to be put on a person's body with suitable protection, and it will fire out of both sides. That's why you have a backing plate with a bit of padding and all that to protect your actor. Well, unless it's the last day of the shoot and you don't really care.
Yeah, of course.
So remember, it was Hitchcock who said, I never said actors were cattle, its actors should be treated like cattle. Okay. But I don't think he meant that.
We're trying to make this sound good here.
Come on, everybody, let's Hitchcock. So this is it's electrically fired. It's the same type of thing.
Right. So for anybody who doesn't know, when people get shot on a show, it's not real, obviously, and this little explosive usually will cut little slits in the material. We'll put something underneath, and there'll be a blood pack in there. And this will go boom, and it'll look like the guy got shot. So
or unless you're into something like daytime syndication where you can't show blood, in which case what they'll do is they'll put like some talc or baby powder or some Fuller's Earth even.
Something
for that. Yeah.
More goodies. What have you got for us?
Okay, what I've got here are what are usually called robotics. They can be called short circuiters. It's basically something that when current is applied to it will shoot out some sparks. There are a number of different types. There are what are referred to as OSC, which is omnidirectional short circuit, which means it goes everywhere. There is DSC, which means directional short circuit.
Right.
So depending on what the scene calls for will have a bearing on what you're using. So if, for example, a power control panel on the Enterprise is blowing up and you've got an actor next to it, you will use a directional because you want to make sure that you're not having it blow up right in the actor's face.
Right.
If it's just a control panel on a wall and there's nobody near it, you might go for an Omni because you just want sparks to go everywhere. So it really depends on that.
Right.
Now, everything that we're talking about here is being fired electrically, with a rare exception of the hand-fired display. So so everything has a wire. Now, if you're making your airburst, like that airburst I showed you, which was made rather than buying a pre-made one, then you need the electric match to make it with. There we go. So I've got yes. So I've got some different types of electric match here. They all pretty much have the same function. There's two wires coming up with a bridge wire that is coated with pyrogen, a component which will spark or catch once the current is applied. And then that flame goes to whatever you've got
Cascades.
it in, whether it be your airburst powder, whether it be your concussion powder, whether it be your quick match for your fireworks. When we're using E-match for fireworks, you always leave the shroud on and then slide it into the sleeve on the E-match. You don't put the head in because there's a risk of friction and setting things off when you're close to it, and this is not good.
See this? That's how you store stuff.
Yeah, you always have the wire shunted until you actually run it into the system. Now, there's also this type, which it's a similar type of thing, but basically these are Pyropack, and it's just a different style, a shorter lead.
Yeah,
you might need them for something
to build your own stuff.
To build your own, depending on what you're doing with it. You would want to, use that. You might still need to attach extra wire to it.
And what's cool too is a lot of this stuff. It's prepackaged, saves you a lot of time. I just grab this, I yank this off. It's already been stripped. It's designed for speed, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Now also, but bear in mind, you need to have the pyro license to buy electric match.
Right.
There are non-pyrogen igniters that are available from some local firework companies like Mystical. They're called Talons, is general name. And they don't use a pyrogen, so they don't fall under the same regulations. And what they are is it's a little clip, sort of like a clothespin, and it's got a little nichrome wire on it. So what you do is if this was your fuse for your family product, you put the clip over it, squeeze it down, and it puts the nichrome wire across it, and then when you apply the current, it heats up the wire, and that's what ignites the fuse.
Right.
So it uses no chemicals like the E-Match.
Right.
So that's why people can buy those where they don't need to have the license. However, as with anything, check your municipality's regulations.
Yes.
Because they may say, I don't care if you need a license or not, you're not using it here.
Right, right. And, I don't think we can emphasize enough that, when you're playing around with this stuff, obviously have a professional attitude. Safety is important, but you're also, when you're approaching, a fireman with something like this, you're representing the community. So it's not just about you. And try and do things as best as you can. If you make a mistake, fine, but let's do our very best. Be respectful, as you mentioned earlier. And I mean, this stuff is dangerous.
Yes,
it's dangerous. This is not a game, and when it's done right, it's perfectly safe.
Yeah.
Perfectly safe.
Yeah, and it's also, as you say, you're representing. If you're working on behalf of a company, you're representing that company. And if they don't feel that you're putting forward a good enough face, they won't bring you back to work for them again, and you lose that opportunity. Now, the next thing we got here is a concussion mortar.
Big,
thick, heavy. You notice there are concussion mortars and there are flash pots.
Right.
The main difference is the concussion mortar is it's a lot more powerful explosive. That's why it's this thick, and it's fairly heavy.
It is.
You also notice I've got a couple of pieces of tape here that have some numbers on them.
Mm-hmm.
That was referring to the numbering system that I was using on the show that I used that on last. So, for example, it's 23-6. That means it was the second out of 3 posts.
Mm-hmm.
It was the third module in that post, and it was the 6th line.
Okay. And this kind of information would have been on that script.
And that was for the script I built for that show.
Do they call it a script?
Yeah, you call it a script, call it a shot list, call it a show list, with different names on this. But it will basically say, this is what the effect is, this is where it goes off. Some of them will even go so far as to have the times listed, even if it's totally computerized. Because you may wind up having to manually do it with a stopwatch. And in that case, you basically got somebody with a stopwatch who taps you on the shoulder and you hit the button at the right point.
Right. Which we hope we would never have to do.
No. Well, it depends on the show. I've done a number of shows where I am shooting to cue. And so you have to do that. If the show is timed but it's not set to music, then yes, you will quite often have a person there with a stopwatch and you just taps you on the shoulder and you push and you keep going to the next button so you know what you're doing on that. Mm-hmm. So now, if we're done with that, I can show you a couple. I mean, there's lots of different firing systems, but I brought a couple with me today that I can show you.
Okay, we'll get back. We'll have a look at those in a sec.
Okay.